And we're back with Gary Kessler from Gary Kessler Associates, up from the Vermont InfraGard Alliance. And Gary's telling us about his book that's due out in the spring of 2011, published by Elsiver. It'll be Selected Topics in Computer Science. And we're very happy to have him with us. Gary, welcome back to the program. Hey, now,
Thanks
you got to get back to the question here. What are the types of stego?
Okay, I did actually feel for a moment like I was a famous politician who just wanted to answer the questions that they wanted to answer.
There you go.
But I will now answer the question that you asked. If I focus on the digital world, which I think for most of us right now is probably the most relevant, there are any number of ways of building our covert communication channels. One of them is simple manipulation of the least significant bit of graphical images or audio or video files. The reason being that, of course, I mean, to give a simple example, in a JPEG or GIF image that we have today, there's something on the order of 16 million colors, because these are 24-bit color images. I myself live in a 3-bit color world, so my point is you can make some noticeable changes to, changes to images with slight variations in color I'm not going to detect. And in fact, there's some changes in color that are just absolutely undetectable by the eye. So by overwriting the least significant bit of the bit definitions, the red, green, blue bit definitions of a pixel, the eye can't see the changes. But in fact, it provides a mechanism where I could now put in bit streams of information. So if you give me a big JPEG file, 1 megabit big JPEG file, I may be able to get some, tens of thousands of bits of information into that file. Now, JPEG, of course, is done slightly differently than GIF. GIF and bitmap and PNGs use a type of compression called lossless compression. And because of that, you would just do direct overwriting of the least significant bits. JPEG uses lossy compression. It's a different encryption or a different coding form, but in fact there are stego methods that are specific to the type of formatting that JPEG uses. The same type of methods can be used in audio files, because again, the audio file of this interview, if we were to overwrite the least significant bit of the digitized file, well, the ear's not going to detect little changes. And so again, provides us a mechanism for streaming bit streams there. And of course, when you get into video files, there is a lot of extraneous bits that we could overwrite. And so, just to take a little break here in my in my overview, it's important to note that I can take any form of digital information and I can convert it into a text file. Just using base 64 conversion, I can convert anything into text. And if I have a text file, I can hide it in a lot of different types of carrier files. So I can hide it not only in images and video and audio files, which is what we tend to think of. I can also hide them inside of, in some cases, executable files. I can hide them in all sorts of Office type of files, Word, Excel, those kind of things. So anyway, continuing along the other ways of doing stego, one of the methods is called grammar selection. There's a site on the internet called spammimic.com. And what spammimic.com does is you go to that site and you give them a message. Effectively what they do is they take the message, they convert it into a bit stream, and then based upon your bit stream, they choose words and phrases, and they generate a spam message. And there's been all sorts of work done in grammar selection where one of the examples that I saw early on was somebody built a model for the color commentary of a baseball game. And you chose what the color commentary was going to be merely by your choice of bits. And so, of course, you can go from a set of bits to the commentary of the game, and if you have the commentary of the game, you can go back to the set of bits. Data appending is another one that is, again, almost trivial in its nature. We take the data I want to hide, and I throw it at the end of a file. So I build a PDF file, which has a header and a trailer, and I put my data at the end of the PDF file. One of the other ways that is commonly done in a digital environment, sometimes called format modification. You have seen Word files, as I have, that have a lot of meaningless spaces and meaningless tabs. What we call that is white space modification. Some algorithms, there's one in particular called Snow, will actually take the hidden message. It will modify a text file by merely adding spaces and tabs where they can't be seen by the viewer, because when the viewer reads the file, it reads correctly. It's only when you look at the file in such a way to show all of the spaces and all the tabs that you would see them, but even then you might not be able to interpret them. And lastly, among my personal favorites, since I am at heart a networking guy, is there are any number of algorithms that are building covert communication channels over TCP/IP and or voice over IP. And what they're doing is, the fact is that in the TCP and IP headers, there are bits that I hesitate to say they're unused, but they're fields that are not used to their fullest extent. So they provide a mechanism whereby if I'm using the right software and I'm communicating with you and you're using the right software, I can modify the contents of the headers to have hidden information. And the same is becoming true now with voice over IP as well.
Wow, it's kind of scary the way you put that out there.
And I've done my job.
Yeah, you really have. That is very scary. Although I was familiar with some of what you're talking about, and certainly not all of it. I was fairly familiar with you could hide the files in different Slack space and DAT files and Word files and everything else like that. That I was aware of already. But some of this other stuff is kind of scary. Had no idea about that at all. So let's get into the next part of this. Applications. Why did this make the news last summer? What was going on? Give us the context to that.
Well, stego, as I said, is used for covert communications. And one of the scenarios I've actually been using in talks that I've given on stego for some years. And I don't even know that I originated the scenario. I may have gotten it from others. But basically it runs like this. Let's say I'm the head of a terrorist cell, and I've got 5 people in my cell. So in the model I'm about to give, every Monday morning on eBay, I'm going to post an object for sale. Now it turns out it really is for sale. And people are going to bid on it, and somebody's going to win the bidding, and I'm going to send them the product. And my ratings on eBay are going to go sky high because I'm obviously a legitimate seller of quality stuff. So what will happen then is every week I'm going to have thousands of visitors to my eBay site. Now meanwhile, in the picture that I'm posting on Monday morning is a hidden message. The 5 people in my cell know how to retrieve that hidden message out of the GIF file that I have that's the picture of the lamp or the jacket that I'm selling. But meanwhile, 10,000 people have downloaded the picture, and they don't know there's anything particular about it. The reason I mention that scenario is, imagine now if you're an investigator, and even if you somehow got wind of the fact that I'm doing something odd, and you go to my eBay site, you see thousands of visitors every week, and hundreds of those visitors are repeat visitors. So how do you gather the intel with which to figure out who are the 5 who are my close buddies in my cell? So what happened last summer was it was discovered that there was this group of spies allegedly from Russia. Or I guess they were from Russia. They were allegedly spies. I'm trying to be correct here.
Don't worry about that.
and well, I know when. And they had been using, actually not a great form of steganography, but stego nevertheless, where they had been posting pictures on websites, and the pictures had hidden messages in them that presumably only this group knew how to retrieve. And what they were using was the stego images on the website were basically becoming their digital dead drop.
Wow. All right, so you scared the hell out of me. So now give me a tool. All right. What is law enforcement going to be doing? How are people going to pick up on this and work this out? Are there tools out there today that can detect some of this stuff and make the job easier?
There are a number of automated tools that do any number of things to, in fact, help make the job easier. I told you that I had co-written my chapter with Chet Hosmer from Whetstone Technologies. Whetstone is one provider of such a tool.
Okay.
There's also SARC, and I am embarrassedly blanking right now on what SARC stands for. Stego Analysis Research Center or Resource Center. They're also doing some work that had originally been funded by National Institute of Justice. And the software that both organizations put out at a very high level has some generic similarity. First, what they have are tools that will allow you to try to identify if there is stego software on a computer that you're examining. What they've done is they've built libraries of basically all the known stego tools, and it's probably worth noting that there are hundreds of stego tools. There's a website called Stego Archive, which last count, when I went there last, listing well over 400 pieces of software to do stego on all sorts of operating systems. Most of it is open source and or free. In any case, what they've done is they've taken all of those distributions. They have effectively made something like a hash library. So if you're looking at somebody's computer when doing a forensic exam, even if those files have been renamed, you can still find the file due to the hash signature. So that gives you a clue that somebody's using stego. Plus the normal clues that that any investigator or examiner needs to know about, just part of the overall awareness of the scene. If law enforcement ever executes a search warrant on my office and finds 12 linear feet of books on cryptography and steganography, this should raise a red flag and make them think twice about pulling the plug on my computer. In any case, the second tool that that both organizations provide is one that allows them to look at suspect images. Like, we have found evidence of a program called JP Hide and Seek. JP Hide and Seek is commonly used to hide information in JPEG files. So now I need another tool, let's say, to look at all of my JPEG files and perhaps be able to determine by some sort of statistical methods that there's something about these files that makes us think that there is some hidden content. And again, it's not quite as simple as I'm making it, but those are basically the two classes. There are a fair number of pieces of software actually that can be pointed at particular types of content, JPEG or GIF and PNG and other lossless compression type of files, to attempt to see if there's hidden content and attempt to extract it.
Okay, why don't we take a break here? It's probably a good segue point. All right, and when we come back, we're going to talk just a little bit more about applications and, quite frankly, ask the question, is anyone talking about how much this is used and whether or not it's time-sensitive steganography? All right, we'll be back right after these messages.